The morning sun of 7 cast long shadows across the training grounds of the Galactic Union's Xenobiology Field Academy. 32 cadets stood in neat rows, their various body shapes making the formation look uneven. Some had 4 arms. Some had scales. Some floated slightly above the ground. They came from 12 different worlds, united by one goal: to learn how to study the galaxy's most dangerous creatures without dying. Instructor Oran walked before them with slow, careful steps. He was tall and thin, with 4 arms that moved like water when he gestured. His skin caught the light as he turned to face the cadets. Behind him stood a massive containment zone, surrounded by plasma fencing that hummed with deadly energy. "Today," Oran said, his mandibles clicking between words, "you will see your first stalker." A ripple of fear passed through the cadets. Everyone knew about they were the nightmares of the Rim worlds: 8 legs, venomous spines along their backs, eyes that could see heat signatures through walls. They had killed more colonists than any other creature in recorded history. Oran raised one of his hands for silence. "I have studied predators for 30 cycles. I have lost colleagues, I have lost friends, and I have learned one truth above all others." He paused, letting his words sink in. "Do not engage the predator. Do not approach. Do not attempt communication. These creatures operate on pure instinct. They cannot be reasoned with. They cannot be bargained with. They cannot be tamed." The cadets nodded. This was the first rule of xenobiology: observe from safety, document from distance. Never ever try to interact. Oran pressed a button on his wrist device. The plasma fence flickered, and a section became transparent. The cadets leaned forward to see. The stalker moved inside its enclosure like liquid shadow. It was massive, nearly 3 meters tall when it raised its front legs. Its body was covered in dark plates that seemed to absorb light. The spines on its back glistened with poison. When it turned its head toward the viewing window, its compound eyes reflected the cadets' terrified faces back at them. Stood near the back of the group. She was the only human in the program, and she was very aware of how different she looked from everyone else. No scales, no extra limbs, no natural armor, just soft skin and brown eyes and hair she kept tied back in a simple knot. The other cadets had been polite to her, but she could feel their confusion. Humans had only discovered faster-than-light travel 40 years ago. They were newcomers to the galactic community. Some of the species here had been traveling between stars for 10,000 years. What could a human possibly teach them about anything? Watched the pace inside its enclosure. Something about its movement felt familiar to her. The way it held its body low. The way its eyes tracked movement. The tension in its muscles. She had seen something like this before, long ago, on a world very far from here. The training session continued. Oran explained the hunting patterns, its territorial behavior, its preferred prey. He showed them scanned data and autopsy results. He described, in careful detail, what happened to a research team that had gotten too close to a wild nest. Listened, but she kept watching the creature. It had stopped packing. Now it sat near the viewing window, its compound eyes fixed on the group of cadets, on her specifically. She could feel its attention like heat on her skin. Then the alarm started. Red lights flashed across the training ground. A mechanical voice announced a containment breach. The plasma fence flickered once, twice, and then a section of it died completely. The stalker did not hesitate. It was through the gap before anyone could react. Cadets scattered in every direction. Their screams filled the air. Oran shouted orders, trying to organize an evacuation, but panic had already taken hold. They landed in the middle of the training ground, its 8 legs spread wide, its spines raised and dripping venom. It was looking for prey, and it was surrounded by prey. Did not run. She stood perfectly still while chaos erupted around her. This head turned toward the movement of fleeing cadets, but it had not yet chosen a target. It was assessing, deciding. This was the moment before the hunt began. Recognized that moment. She had seen it in the eyes of creatures on Earth, the coiled tension, the predatory focus, the split second where everything hung in balance. She whistled. The sound cut through the screaming and the alarms. It was a specific pattern her grandmother had taught her when she was a child. Low, then high, then a sustained note that seemed to hang in the air. The stalker froze. Its compound eyes locked onto, every spine on its back slowly lowered. The killing tension drained from its body, and then, impossibly, it sat down. The training ground went silent. Cadets who had been running stopped and turned. Oran stood with his mouth open, his four arms hanging limp at his sides. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Took a step forward. Cadet Oran finally found his voice. Do not approach, that is a direct order. Did not stop. She walked toward them with slow, steady steps. Her heart was pounding, but she kept her movements calm, predictable, non-threatening. She had done this before in a different place with a different creature. The principles were the same. The watched her come. It did not move. It did not raise its spines. When it was close enough to touch it, she stopped and extended her hand, palm up. The creature leaned forward. Its massive head, large enough to bite her in half, lowered until it was level with her hand. Then it pressed its face against her palm and made a sound no one at the academy had ever heard before. It was purring. Stroked the hard plates of its head, feeling the warmth beneath them. Good, she said softly. That's good. You're okay. I'm here. Oran approached on shaking legs. His 30 years of experience had not prepared him for this moment. Nothing in his training, nothing in his studies, nothing in the entire history of galactic xenobiology had prepared him for the sight of a small, soft, fragile human standing beside the deadliest predator in the rim worlds, petting it like it was a family pet. How? He asked. It was the only word he could manage. Looked at him with those strange human eyes, the ones with whites around the colored parts. She smiled, and for the first time, Oran felt something he had never expected to feel toward a human. He felt afraid. Where I come from, said, we learned a long time ago that the scariest things sometimes just need a friend. The Academy Council chamber was built for beings much larger than. She sat in a chair designed for her feet dangling above the floor like a child's. Around her, representatives from 6 different species sat behind a curved table that stretched from one wall to the other. They had been questioning her for 3 hours. Let me understand this correctly, said Counselor, with scales the color of dried blood. His species were ambush predators, patient and cold. You claim you used no technology, no pheromone compounds, no telepathic manipulation. That's correct, Sid. Then explain how you controlled the creature. I didn't control it. The council members exchanged glances. Instructor Oran sat in the corner of the room, still looking shaken from the events of the morning. He had not spoken since the session began. The stalker, said Scholar, whose body seemed to shimmer with soft light, is responsible for the deaths of over 40,000 sentient beings in the last century alone. It is classified as a Category 7 threat. It cannot be reasoned with. It cannot be trained. These are established facts. Leaned forward, their voice gentle but confused, and yet it sat at your feet like a hatchling. Took a deep breath. She had known this moment would come eventually. Every human who left Earth carried this secret with them, though most never had reason to share it. The galaxy had so many assumptions about humanity. They were newcomers. They were primitive. They were soft and weak and unremarkable. The galaxy had no idea. May I show you something? Asked. She pulled out a small data pad and connected it to the chamber's display system. A moment later, an image appeared on the wall behind the council. It was a photograph from Earth. A little girl, maybe 5 years old, sat on green grass. Beside her was an animal. It had 4 legs and fur and teeth designed for tearing flesh. Its mouth was open, its tongue hanging out, and the little girl had her arms wrapped around its neck. This, said, is a dog. The council stared at the image. The creature you see was, many thousands of years ago, a wolf. Wolves were pack hunters. They worked together to bring down prey much larger than themselves. They had teeth that could crush bone. They were fast, smart, and deadly. Paused. And we made friends with them. Counselor's scales shifted color slightly. Explain. We don't know exactly how it started. Maybe a wolf pack started following human tribes, eating scraps from their hunts. Maybe humans found wolf pups and raised them. But somewhere along the way, we stopped seeing wolves as threats. We started seeing them as partners. We bred them generation after generation until they became dogs. Now they sleep in our beds. They play with our children. They protect our families. They love us and we love them. The chamber was completely silent. Change the image. Now it showed a human riding on the back of an enormous animal with 4 legs and a flowing mane. This is a horse. It weighs 500 kilograms. A single kick from its legs can kill a human instantly. We ride them for fun. Another image. A human with a bird perched on their arm. The bird had a curved beak and talons like knives. This is a falcon, an aerial predator. We train them to hunt for us and return to our arms. Another image. A human swimming in water beside a creature with rows of sharp teeth visible in its smile. This is a dolphin. They are marine predators. They guide our ships and rescue our swimmers when they are drowning. Another image. A human sitting calmly while a large cat with orange and black stripes lounge beside them. This is a tiger, one of the deadliest land predators on our planet. Some humans keep them as companions. Turned off the display. The council members had not moved. Some of them looked like they had forgotten how to breathe. Humans, said quietly, evolved alongside predators. We were not the strongest. We were not the fastest. We had no claws, no venom, no armor. By all logic, we should have been prey. But something in us refused to accept that. Instead of running from predators, we reached out to them. We offered food. We offered companionship. We offered something that, as far as we know, no other species in the galaxy has ever offered to a dangerous creature. What? Oran asked. It was the first time he had spoken. We offered love. Scholar made a soft sound. They could sense emotions, and whatever they were feeling from was clearly affecting them. You cannot be serious. You befriended apex predators through affection. Through patience, said. Through consistency. Through trust built over generations. It wasn't fast. It took thousands of years. But we did it. And we did it because somewhere deep in the human brain there is a part of us that looks at something dangerous and beautiful and thinks, I want that to be my friend. Counselor stood up slowly. His claws clicked against the table. Do you understand what you are telling us? You are saying that your species, one of the youngest in the galaxy, has been domesticating predators since before most of our civilizations discovered fire. Yes. You are saying that the trait we considered your greatest weakness, your emotional nature, your pack bonding instincts, your need for connection, is actually a tool for turning threats into allies. Yes. Sat back down, he looked at the other council members. For a long moment no one spoke. Then asked the question that was hanging in the air. Though the creature you touched today, what did you see in it? Smiled sadly. I saw something lonely. They are pack hunters like wolves. They are not meant to live alone. In the wild they have families, hierarchies, bonds, but in that enclosure it had nothing. No pack, no purpose, no connection. It was going mad from isolation. She paused. I gave it what every predator secretly wants. I gave it a pack to belong to. The council called a recess, was escorted back to her quarters, where a security detail waited outside her door. Not to keep her in, she realized. To keep others out. News of what she had done was already spreading through the academy. She looked out her window at the containment zone below. The which she had started calling Shadow in her mind was packing again. But this time, its pattern was different. It was walking along the edge of its enclosure, following the path that led toward her building. It was looking for her. Pressed her hand against the window glass. Somewhere down there, Shadow stopped packing. Its compound eyes turned upward, finding her window with impossible accuracy. It sat down and waited. In that moment, understood something the Council was only beginning to grasp. Humans had been doing this for 10,000 years, making friends with things that could kill them, building bonds that logic and survival instinct, looking at monsters and seeing family. The galaxy thought humans were harmless because they were soft. The galaxy had no idea how dangerous love could be. Word spread faster than light. Within 3 days, researchers from across the Galactic Union arrived at 7. They came in ships of every size and design, filling the Academy's landing zones until overflow crafts had to park in the surrounding fields. Everyone wanted to see the human who had tamed the untamable. Found herself at the center of something she had never expected. She was not a scientist. She was not a diplomat. She was just a xenobiology student who had done what felt natural. But the galaxy saw her as something else entirely. A puzzle, a mystery, perhaps a threat. The debates began almost immediately. Instructor Oran argued with a group of scholars in the Academy's main hall. His 4 arms moved in sharp, frustrated gestures. What she did should be impossible. He operates on pure predatory instinct. There is no room for bonding in its behavioral matrix. Then your behavioral matrix is wrong, said one of the scholars. The evidence is in the containment zone. The creature responds to her, only to her. That does not mean bonding. That could be imprinting or trauma response or some form of manipulation we do not yet understand. Oran had spent 30 years building his understanding of predators. He had watched colleagues die because they made small mistakes around dangerous creatures. Every lesson he had learned said that should be dead. The fact that she was alive and was calm destroyed everything he thought he knew. In another part of the Academy, Counselor met with a group of observers. They spoke in low voices, their scales rippling with colors that conveyed meaning beyond words. The humans are more dangerous than we realized, one observer said. If they can do this with what else can they do? Nodded slowly. I have been thinking the same thing. Our species achieved dominance through individual strength. We are apex predators ourselves. We understand the logic of hunting, of competition, of survival of the fittest. He paused. But humans do not follow that logic. They do not compete with predators. They absorb them. They make predators part of their pack. That is not natural. No, it is something far more concerning. It is effective. Scholar had taken a different approach. They spent hours simply sitting near, sensing the emotional patterns that flowed from her. What found was deeply unsettling. You are drawn to danger, said during one of their sessions. They sat in a quiet garden behind the main building, surrounded by alien plants that swayed without wind. When you approached your fear levels were elevated, but there was something else, something underneath the fear. What do you mean? Asked. Excitement. Shimmer brightened with confusion. Your brain rewarded you for approaching the threat. You found it thrilling. This is not normal for prey species. Prey species feel only fear when facing predators, but humans trailed off. We're complicated, said with a small smile. That is an understatement. I have studied your species' history through the data archives. You have something called extreme sports, activities where you deliberately put yourselves in danger for entertainment. You jump from aircraft. You climb mountains that kill dozens of your kind every year. You swim with creatures that could eat you. Shook their head. Your survival instincts appear to be broken. Laughed, or maybe they're just different. Maybe the reason we survived on Earth was because we didn't run from everything scary. We stayed, we watched, we learned, and eventually we reached out. The Academy gave permission to work with Shadow directly. They set up observation equipment around the containment zone and recorded every interaction. What they documented changed everything. Established a routine. She visited Shadow at the same times each day. She brought food and offered it by hand. She spoke to him in a calm, steady voice, using the same words and tones consistently. She never rushed. She never forced. She let Shadow choose when to approach, when to accept contact, when to trust. Within a week, Shadow would come to the edge of his enclosure when he heard her footsteps. Within 2 weeks, he allowed her to touch him without flinching. Within 3 weeks, he made the purring sound whenever she arrived and a different, lower sound whenever she left. The researchers watched in amazement. The creature is not being controlled, Oran admitted during a review session. It clearly cost him to say those words. It is choosing to interact. It is seeking out the human's company. Its stress hormones have dropped by 60% since the bonding began. But why? Asked one of the observers. What is it getting from this relationship? Answered, pack predators need social structures. They need hierarchy, purpose, connection. In the wild, live in family groups. They hunt together, raise young together, defend territory together. Shadow was taken from his pack and put in isolation. He was alone for years. That kind of loneliness drives social predators insane. She looked at the data on the screens. Shadow's neural activity, his hormone levels, his behavioral patterns. I gave him what he was missing. I gave him someone to belong to, and he latched onto that because he was desperate for it. You make it sound simple, said. It is simple. That's what none of you understand. Bonding with predators isn't complicated. It just requires something that most species aren't willing to give. What? Time, patience, the willingness to be vulnerable, turned to face the assembled researchers. When I walked up to Shadow that first day, I could have died. I knew that. But I also knew that running would definitely trigger his hunting instinct. The only chance I had was to do the opposite of what prey does, to stand still, to offer myself, to trust that there was something in him that wanted connection more than it wanted to kill. The room was silent. That's the human secret, said. We're not brave, we're not special. We're just stupid enough to think that everything might want to be our friend, and sometimes, against all odds, we're right. The Academy requested more humans. The small Earth delegation, originally only 5 people, grew to 12, began teaching them her methods. Not everyone could do what she did. It required a certain calmness, a certain willingness to suppress fear, but some of them learned. By the end of the month, 3 humans could enter Shadow's enclosure safely. By the end of the second month, Shadow allowed physical contact from all of them. That had been classified as untamable now had a pack of soft, fragile humans who brought it food and scratched behind its spine ridges and talked to it like it was a beloved pet. The galaxy watched and wondered. If humans could do this with the deadliest creature in the Rim worlds, what else were they capable of? The answer, when it came, would terrify some and inspire others. But that revelation was still coming. The Galactic Union's intelligence division operated from a station hidden in the asteroid belt of an unremarkable system. Most citizens did not know it existed. The beings who worked there preferred it that way. Agent Al was a like Instructor Oran, but where Oran studied predators in the field, Al studied civilizations from the shadows. His job was to identify threats before they became problems. And right now, his attention was focused entirely on humanity. Pull everything from the Earth data archives, he ordered his team. I want their complete history, every record of interaction between humans and predators, everything. His team worked for days. The archives were extensive. Humans, despite being newcomers to the galactic stage, had been meticulous record keepers throughout their history. They had paintings that were 30,000 years old, written records going back 5,000 years, photographs and videos from the last 2 centuries. All of it was available to anyone who cared to look. No one had ever cared to look before. Humans were considered irrelevant, primitive, harmless. Al now suspected that assessment was catastrophically wrong. The first files he reviewed concerned dogs. The transformation from wolf to dog was well documented. Humans had taken a pack predator and, through selective breeding over generations, created hundreds of different varieties. Some were tiny enough to fit in a human hand. Others were massive enough to bring down prey larger than themselves. All of them were loyal to humans in ways that bordered on religious devotion. But that was only the beginning. The files on war dogs made Al's blood run cold. Humans had used dogs in combat for thousands of years. There were records of dogs wearing armor, charging into battle alongside human soldiers. Dogs trained to attack on command, to hold positions, to guard prisoners. Dogs that would fight to the death to protect their human companions. They weaponized them, Al murmured. They turned companion animals into soldiers. His assistant, a young named, looked up from her screen. That is not the worst of it, sir. Look at this. She transferred a file to his display. It showed images of elephants, massive creatures, the largest land animals on Earth. They could weigh over 5,000 kilograms. A single elephant could crush a human without effort. Humans rode them into war. The historical records showed elephants carrying platforms filled with archers, elephants trained to charge enemy formations, elephants used to batter down walls and gates. The humans had looked at something that could flatten them with one step and thought, that would be useful in a fight. More files. Horses, which could kick hard enough to shatter bones, were ridden into battle for thousands of years. Falcons and hawks were trained to hunt and kill on command. Dolphins were used by human militaries to detect underwater threats and carry equipment. Even insects were put to work. Bees were kept in artificial hives, producing food for humans and pollinating their crops. They domesticated everything, said. Her voice was quiet with something like awe. Every ecological niche on their planet, predators, prey, scavengers. They found a way to work with all of them. Al leaned back in his chair. He was beginning to understand something troubling. The galaxy had thousands of intelligent species. Each one had found its own path to dominance. The used hive coordination, the used ambush hunting, the used emotional manipulation. Humans used friendship. It sounded absurd. It sounded weak. But the evidence was undeniable. Humanity had become the dominant species on their planet not through strength or speed or natural weapons, but through their ability to form bonds with other species. They had turned potential threats into allies. They had built networks of cooperation that crossed species boundaries. And now they were doing it with a... Al called an emergency meeting of the Intelligence Division's senior staff. He presented his findings without commentary, letting the images and records speak for themselves. The human ability to bond with predators is not a quirk, he concluded. It is a survival strategy refined over tens of thousands of years. They are natural. They see potential partners where other species see threats. What are you suggesting? Asked one of the senior agents. That humans are dangerous. I am suggesting that humans are unpredictable. Consider the implications. They have been members of the Galactic Union for only 40 years. In that time, they have been quiet, cooperative, unremarkable. We assume they were harmless because they are soft and weak. But what if their softness is the point? What if their weakness is what makes them effective? He pulled up an image of standing beside Shadow, her hand resting on this massive head. This human formed a bond with a Category 7 predator in less than a month, a creature that has killed thousands. If humans can do this with what happens when they encounter other dangerous species? What happens when they decide to befriend something even worse? The room was silent. There is also another consideration, Al continued. The bonding works both ways. The is now loyal to, it would protect her, it would kill for her. She has not just tamed a predator, she has acquired a weapon. Surely she would not use it that way. Perhaps not, but can we guarantee that all humans are so peaceful? Can we guarantee that no human would ever use this ability for harmful purposes? Al's forearms spread wide. We have invited a species of natural into the galactic community, a species that, on their home world, turned everything dangerous into either a tool or a friend. We assumed they were harmless because they smiled and cooperated and asked politely. But wolves once thought humans were harmless too. The meeting ended without resolution. Some agents felt that humans should be restricted, watched more carefully, perhaps limited in their access to dangerous species. Others argued that cooperation was better than confrontation. Humans might become the galaxy's greatest diplomats, building bridges between species that had been enemies for. Both sides agreed on one thing: humanity was not what it appeared to be. Back on Seven, was unaware of the discussions happening in hidden stations and secure chambers. She spent her days with Shadow, building their bond, documenting their interactions, teaching other humans the art of predator bonding. She received a message from Earth one evening. It was from her grandmother, the one who had taught her to whistle as a child. "I saw the news," her grandmother wrote. "They showed the video of you and that creature. You look just like I did when I was young, working with the wolves at the sanctuary. Different world, same stubborn determination." There was a pause in the text then. "Your great-grandmother used to say that every creature wants to be loved, even the scary ones, especially the scary ones." Looks like she was right. Smiled and saved the message. Outside her window, Shadow was packing again, but now she recognized the pattern. He was not hunting. He was not stressed. He was waiting for morning, when she would come to see him again. Thousands of light years away, decisions were being made that would change everything. But in that moment felt only peace. She had made a friend. That was what humans did. The attack came at midnight. Woke to the sound of explosions and screaming. Red emergency lights painted her quarters in bloody color. Through her window, she could see fires burning across the academy grounds. Something was very wrong. She ran into the hallway and nearly collided with another human from the Earth delegation. His face was pale with fear. "Containment breach," he gasped. "Not just Shadow, all of them. Someone released all the..." His blood went cold. Shadow was not the only on Seven. The Academy kept 17 specimens in separate enclosures for research. Most of them had been captured young and raised in isolation. Unlike Shadow, they had never known pack bonding. They had spent their entire lives alone, afraid, angry. They were not tamed, they were feral. "Who did this?" demanded. "Extremists. They think humans are a threat. They wanted to prove that your bonding methods don't work, that they are still dangerous." Grabbed her arm. "We need to evacuate, now." They ran toward the main building. Other cadets and researchers joined them, a panicked crowd of alien species all fleeing in the same direction. Instructor Oran was there, shouting orders, trying to maintain some sense of control. "Emergency shuttles are loading in the north courtyard," he announced. "Everyone move quickly and stay together. Do not separate from the group." A scream cut through the night. One of the had found its way to the crowd. It burst from between two buildings, all 8 legs churning, spines raised and dripping venom. Cadets scattered in every direction. The organized evacuation collapsed into chaos. "Did not run." She stood in the middle of the path, watching the approach. It was smaller than Shadow, younger but no less deadly. Its compound eyes locked onto her, seeing heat, seeing prey, seeing an easy target. She whistled. They hesitated. The sound was unexpected. Prey did not make sounds like that. Prey ran and screamed and died. This small creature was doing something different. Took a step forward. "What are you doing?" Oran shouted. "Get back." She ignored him. She walked toward them with the same calm she had shown on her first day, the same slow steps, the same extended hand. The creature watched her come, its killing instincts warring with something deeper, something it did not understand. "Stop just out of reach." "I know you're scared," she said softly. "I know you're angry. You've been alone for so long, but you don't have to be alone anymore." the spines lowered slightly. Then Shadow appeared. He came from nowhere, massive and fast, putting himself between and the smaller. But he did not attack. He stood there, making sounds that had never heard before. Low rumbles and clicks, a complex pattern that seemed almost like language. The younger responded. Its entire body posture changed. The killing tension drained away. It made the same sounds back at Shadow, hesitant at first, then more confident. "They're communicating," scholars said. They had emerged from hiding, drawn by the emotional resonance of what was happening. Shadow is. He's telling the other one that we're pack, that we belong together. More appeared. They came from different directions, drawn by the sounds of Shadow's calls. His heart pounded as she counted them. 5, 8, 12. All the creatures that had been released, converging on this spot, surrounding her and the small group of humans who had not fled. And the other humans from the Earth delegation moved to stand beside. They did not run. They did not show fear. They stood together, a small pack of soft creatures in the middle of a circle of apex predators. Shadow kept making his calls. One by one the other responded. They lowered their spines. They stopped packing. They sat. 17, the deadliest creatures in the rim worlds, sat in a circle around 12 humans like dogs waiting for their owners to tell them what to do. The evacuation shuttles had stopped loading. Everyone was watching. Beings from a dozen different worlds, all staring at something impossible. Looked at the creatures around her. They were confused, frightened, uncertain. They had lived their whole lives in isolation, never knowing pack, never knowing family. And now a strange creature had appeared and offered them something they did not know they needed. "It's okay," she said, loud enough for all of them to hear. "You're not alone anymore, we're here." She started walking through the group, touching each as she passed, offering the same calm contact she had given Shadow. The other humans followed her lead. They moved among the predators like shepherds among their flock, speaking softly, offering food from their pockets, showing no fear. By dawn, the crisis was over. The extremists were captured. The academy was secured. And 17, creatures that should have slaughtered everyone present, were resting peacefully in a temporary enclosure, watching the humans with something that looked very much like hope. Instructor Iran requested to speak at the final council hearing. He stood before the assembled representatives, his 4 arms clasped behind his back, and spoke words he never thought he would say. "I have studied predators for 30 cycles. I believed I understood them, but I was wrong." He paused, gathering his thoughts. Predators are not simply threats to be managed. They are creatures with needs, with social structures, with the capacity for connection. I dismissed the possibility of bonding because it did not fit my models. I was too proud to consider that a young species might know something my ancient civilization had never learned. He turned to look at, who sat in the audience with Shadow resting beside her chair. They had been granted special permission to attend. No one had wanted to argue the point. "Humans are dangerous," Oran continued, "but not in the way we feared. They are dangerous because they refuse to accept that anything is beyond their friendship. They look at monsters and see potential allies. They look at enemies and see future friends. This is either the most beautiful or the most terrifying trait in the galaxy. Perhaps it is both." The council made its decision. Humans would be granted expanded roles in research. The methods had developed would be studied and, where possible, taught to other species. The 17 would remain on 7, cared for by a mixed team of humans and alien researchers. The Academy's warning was officially changed. The old signs that read, "Do not engage the predator," were taken down. New ones were put up in their place. Was asked to write the new warning. She thought about it for a long time before submitting her suggestion. The new signs read, "Approach with patience, offer with kindness, bond with care." On the day the new semester began, stood before a fresh class of cadets. Among them were representatives from 20 different species, and beside some of them, to the amazement of the older instructors, were creatures the galaxy had once considered untamable. Not just other predators from other worlds, brought by cadets who had heard about the human method and wanted to try it for themselves. Shadow sat beside, massive and calm, his compound eyes watching the new students with something that might have been approval. "Where I come from," told the class, "we have a saying. A dog is the only thing on earth that loves you more than it loves itself. But we've learned that this isn't just true for dogs. It's true for almost any creature if you're patient enough and brave enough to offer them a chance." She looked at Shadow and smiled. He leaned his great head against her side. "The galaxy is full of scary things. Predators and monsters and creatures that seem like they could never be anything but threats. But every one of them started the same way we did. Alone, afraid, wanting to survive." She paused. "Humans didn't become Earth's dominant species because we were the strongest. We became dominant because we were the best at making friends. Because we looked at the things that scared us and thought, what if they just need someone to care about them?" She gestured at Shadow, at the other bonded creatures in the room, at the future that was unfolding in front of all of them. "That's what we offer the galaxy. Not weapons, not conquest, just the oldest human skill there is," she smiled. "The willingness to extend our hand to something that could bite it off and trust that maybe, just maybe, it would rather hold it instead." The class began. And across the galaxy, other humans were extending their hands, making their whistles, offering their patience and their trust and their stubborn, irrational, world-changing love. The predators were listening, and one by one they were sitting down.